Chapter 14. James froze with his hand on the doorknob, his breath caught in his throat. He put his ear to the door and listened, but all he could hear was the pounding of his heart. Then he heard a soft giggle. He turned the knob and jerked open the door. "Terry!" Her blue eyes caught the light of the dim hallway ceiling light. "Gotcha," she said, and burst out laughing. She had changed into denim cutoffs and a pink midriff top. James gaped at her, waiting for his heart to stop thudding. "Hey, that wasn't funny," he snapped. I didn't recognize your voice." He realized it was the first time he'd seen her laugh. "The look on your face as you opened the door," she said, shaking her head. "Priceless." "Glad you enjoyed it," he replied sarcastically. He had a sudden urge to punch her, to wipe the grin off her face, but he forced the thought from his mind. "What's going on?" Her face turned serious. She pushed a strand of black hair off her forehead. "I just thought maybe we could talk," she said reluctantly, avoiding his eyes. She fumbled for words. I sort of want to apologize." "Huh?" He couldn't hide his surprise. He was standing awkwardly in the doorway, still holding onto the doorknob. A fly buzzed noisily against the hallway light. The hallway smelled of stale cigarette smoke. "Want to come in?" he asked, taking a step back. "Could we, take a walk?" She raised her eyes to his and gave him a shy smile. His mind was spinning. Why was she doing this? What did she want? Where was Christina? What was going on? "Don't look at me like that," she said playfully. "I'm not going to kidnap you. I just thought we might take a walk so I could apologize for being so awful to you." "Yeah, sure, okay," he replied uncertainly, scratching his jaw. Leaving the door open, he turned and walked to the dresser to pick up his wallet and room key. "I could use some fresh air," he called back to her. "This air conditioner is just a noise machine." "In our room, too," Terry said. A short while later, they were walking side by side across the parking lot in front of the motel. The air was cool and dry. The inky sky was clear and dotted with bright stars. The pink and green neon sleepy sun reflected off their clothes, making them change colors as they walked. They stopped at the edge of the parking lot. The small town with its low two-story shops angled down a gently sloping hill to the right. To their left, a flat field led to a dark pine forest. James hesitated. Terry took his arm and led him in the direction of the trees. "Nice out," she said shyly, not letting go of his arm. "Yeah," he agreed. "Where's Christina?" he blurted out. A hurt expression crossed Terry's face for a brief moment. "She was tired. She wanted to try to sleep, but I'm too pumped to sleep. All that wild driving. I feel like I'm still in the car, still pushing down on the gas pedal, still trying to get away from whoever it was chasing after us." "What a day," he muttered. "Besides, I didn't want Christina to come," Terry said. A sly smile curled her lips. She squeezed his arm. "I wanted you all to myself for once." "What's going on here?" James wondered, keeping his eyes on the dark trees up ahead. "Is Terry coming on to me? I thought she hated my guts." The field was soft and marshy. A heavy dew had made the tall grass wet. Cicadas chirped out a loud, shrill symphony. "What were you two fighting about?" James asked. "You heard us?" Terry looked up at him in surprise. She lost her footing for a second, her sneakers slipping on the marshy ground. James held onto her arm and she regained her balance. "I guess the walls are pretty thin, huh?" He nodded. We were just letting off steam," she said, staring ahead at the trees looming over them, black shadows against the star-filled sky. "It wasn't really about anything." "I see," James said, not believing a word of it. Sometimes all the tension just gets to you," she continued, "and you just have to shout a bit, get it out of your system." "Sounded like a pretty good fight," James insisted. They were under the trees now, their sneakers crunching softly over a thick carpet of pine needles. They both took a deep breath. The air smelled piney and sweet. "It wasn't a real fight," Terry told him. "Christina and I have been friends for a long time. We know each other so well. We know we can yell and carry on and get all our feelings out, and the other person won't take it the wrong way." "I see," James replied, trying to sound as if he believed her. He didn't. Christina and Terry had disagreed about something, that he knew. Most likely, they had disagreed about him. But now here he was, walking in these dark woods with Terry, asking her questions and getting lies in return. What did she really want? Suddenly, he heard a cracking sound, the sound of a twig breaking under someone's foot. They both stopped. Terry had heard it too. Her eyes widened in fear. She gripped his arm as they listened. Another cracking sound. Rustling, nearby. Terry leaned against him. He could feel her body trembling. Another cracking sound. A footstep. Closer. We're not alone, James whispered. Chapter 15. Shards of pale moonlight filtered down through the thick trees. Long shadows stretched across the ground like dark holes. There was no breeze, no wind at all. James and Terry stood in place, listening to the soft rustlings, the muffled sound of footsteps over the covering of dried pine needles. Who's there? Terry finally managed to cry. No reply. Is anybody there? Terry repeated, casting a frightened glance at James. Again no reply. Another footstep. Look! James pointed down to the ground. Terry turned to follow his gaze, and saw the two intruders scurrying across the path. Possums, she said. Yeah, possums. Still holding on to each other, they both burst out laughing. I knew it was some kind of animal all along, James said, starting to walk again, pushing a clump of tall weeds out of the way. Yeah, right, Terry replied skeptically. You sure scare easy, he teased. I didn't get scared until I saw how scared you were, she shot back. He laughed and turned back to her. She caught up with him. Then, suddenly, she reached a hand up to his shoulder, tugged him down, and kissed him. Her lips were warm and wet. The kiss was short. After a few seconds, she pulled away and took a step back, her face expressionless. Her blue eyes searched his. What was that for? He asked, unable to hide his surprise. That was my apology, she told him. Apology? I told you. That's why I wanted to talk to you. I've been so mean to you. I just wanted to... Impulsively, he grabbed for her waist, tried to pull her to him to kiss her again, but she backed out of his grasp. No. He reached for her again. Hey, what's the problem? Come here. No. She shook her head and stared at him. That's not what I want. I just wanted to apologize. That's all. You're not a tease or anything, are you? He asked, challenging her. His feelings were all mixed up now. He felt confused, angry, eager to kiss her again. James, just listen to me, she insisted shrilly. I thought we might take a nice walk so I could apologize and we could be friends. I wasn't coming on to you. Really, I wouldn't do that to Christina. How will Christina know? He asked, flashing her a devilish grin. Oh, don't be a pig, she shot back. I told you. Christina and I have been friends forever. I'm not going to mess around with a boy she's interested in. James pursed his lips in an exaggerated pout. Shucks, he said sarcastically. Let's go back, Terry said wearily, her features drawn in disappointment. I guess this was a bad idea. She started to turn away from him, back toward the motel, but he grabbed her shoulders and spun her around. Get off! What are you doing? She cried angrily, her blue eyes flaring. James grinned at her teasingly. I'm a big bad guy, Terry, he said. Aren't you afraid to be all alone in these dark woods with me? She shook her head, but he saw a glint of fear in her eyes. Aren't you afraid? He asked again. He was awakened by pounding on the door to his room. He raised his head and tried to blink himself awake. Morning sunlight filtered through the window. He had been sleeping on his stomach on top of his left arm. The arm tingled numb. Yawning, he pulled himself up. He grabbed the arm with his right hand and shook it, trying to wake it up. The loud pounding on the door startled him again. Hey, James, wake up! Christina's voice. He squinted at the clock on the bed table. 7:15. Why so early? He thought. The circulation was beginning to return to the arm. He let it drop to his side. James, wake up! I'm up, he called back. Open the door, Christina called. Hold on. He climbed to his feet and stretched. He had slept in his underwear. Yawning again, he made his way to the armchair where he had tossed his jeans and pulled them on. Pine needles clung to the cuffs he saw. James, open the door, Christina called impatiently. Hold your horses, he said. Starting to feel awake, he made his way to the door, undid the chain and pulled it open. Christina greeted him with a worried expression. Is Terry in there with you? Huh? He squinted at her as if it would help him understand what she was saying. You heard me, she replied sharply. Is Terry in there with you? She looked over his shoulder, trying to see into the room. No, he told her, backing up so she had a better view. No way. Then where is she? Christina asked, panic entering her voice. James brushed back his hair with his hand. What do you mean? She isn't with you? Christina shook her head. He saw her chin tremble. She's gone? Are you sure? Yes, she's gone. Oh, James, I'm so frightened. Terry's disappeared? Chapter 16. Are you sure? James stared at her in disbelief. Christina pushed past him into the room. Of course I'm sure. Her eyes scanned the room, as if she didn't believe him. Maybe she got up early and went out to get breakfast, James suggested. Standing by the window, Christina shook her head. I'm a very light sleeper. I would have heard her get up. She raised the shade and peered out into the sunlight. Besides, her bed wasn't slept in. James stepped into the center of the room, his mind whirring. He caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror over the dresser and realized that his hair was matted down from sleep, one side standing straight out. I heard you two going at it last night, he said, pulling his hairbrush from the canvas bag. So? Christina asked defensively. She crossed her arms over her chest and tossed her hair back over her shoulder with a jerk of her head, a defiant gesture. Well, maybe Terry was angry at you and decided to split, James suggested, turning from the mirror to face her. No way, Christina replied, eyeing him coldly. What were you two arguing about anyway? He asked, turning back to the mirror and carefully brushing his hair. He could see her in a corner of the mirror. She shrugged, as if to say it was nothing important, but her cheeks turned red. It was no big deal, she told his reflection in the mirror. It doesn't concern you. He finished with his hair and tossed the brush into the canvas bag. Christina walked over to him and put her hand on his chest. Oh, James, I'm so scared. What do you think happened to her? Reflexively, he wrapped his arms around her shoulders and comforted her. I still think she just split, he said softly. You're wrong, she said, her face pressed against his chest. I know Terry. She would have said something. She always had to have the last word. If she ditched us because she was angry, she'd have to tell me first. Christina stifled a sob. James could feel her shoulders begin to tremble. He held her tighter. Besides, she said, her voice cracking, her bag is still in the room, unopened. She wouldn't go off without her bag. James thought about it for a long moment. He was trying to decide whether or not to tell Christina he had been with Terry the night before, but his mind wasn't fully awake. He could never think clearly before breakfast. Maybe we should call the police, he said. She pulled out of his arms, her face drawn in a tight frown. Police? Do you think this tiny town even has police? James shrugged. We could call and see. It would be a waste of time, Christina said, her dark eyes locked on his. If there is a policeman or two in this disgusting place, how bright could they be? They probably spend their time pulling cats out of trees. They'd ask us hours of questions, and they wouldn't have a clue about how to find Terry. James plopped down on the edge of the unmade bed. Yeah, you're probably right, he reluctantly agreed. Maybe you should call her parents, up in Cleveland. Maybe Terry called them to tell them she was coming home or something. Her parents? Christina uttered a hollow laugh. They're the last people Terry would call? She and her parents don't get along? They hardly speak? Terry had to sneak out of the house to come to Florida with me? Then maybe we should just wait for her to come back, James suggested. Christina scowled. Oh, sure, brilliant idea. She shook her head unhappily and brushed some blonde curls off her face. What if something has happened to her, James? What if she's lying hurt somewhere? Or, her voice caught in her throat. Or worse, don't forget we were being followed yesterday. Somebody. Okay, James interrupted impatiently. So we can't wait for her. Don't snap at me, Christina warned edgily. He climbed to his feet. I didn't snap at you. I'm just trying to think of what we should do. Let's drive around, Christina said thoughtfully. Let's check out of this dump, then drive around town, drive around the whole area and see if we can find her. Okay. James reached over to the canvas bag and began to zip it up. Sounds good. He smiled reassuringly at Christina. Maybe we'll find her window shopping in town. She didn't smile. Window shopping for what? Tractor tires? They checked out in the motel office. Y'all come back now, the woman behind the counter drawled, sounding like an exaggerated movie version of a southerner. I don't think so, James muttered under his breath. Carrying his bag, he followed Christina out to the front. Then they made their way along the asphalt lot to the back where they had parked the car. The sky, which had started out clear and sunny, had grown overcast. A wall of high gray clouds floated overhead from the south. The air was hot and damp. Looks like rain, James muttered. They turned the corner of the building and stopped. Christina grabbed James's arm and uttered a silent gasp. The car? She said, holding on to him tightly, her face pale and wide-eyed with surprise. The car? It's gone? Chapter 17. Dropping their bags against the back of the building, they walked to the spot where the car had been parked. Christina stared down at a large spot of black oil, as if it might give a clue as to where the car had gone. I don't believe it, she whispered, shaking her head, still staring at the oil stain. Terry must have taken it, James said, his voice shaken. Christina gazed up at him. He looks really frightened, she thought. He's trying to come on brave and cool, but he looks scared to death. She couldn't have taken it, Christina told him. She opened her bag and fumbled around in it. After a brief search, she pulled out a keychain. I have the keys, she announced grimly. Terry couldn't have taken the car without the keys? She watched James's mouth drop open in surprise. That's the only pair? He asked, staring at them. She nodded. Yep. He kicked at a pebble on the asphalt surface, sending it bouncing into the back of the building. Guess we have to call the police, he said quietly. We have to get out of here, Christina urged, squeezing his hand. Someone is after us, James. If someone took Terry and the car, they'll be coming after us next. What are you saying? He squinted at her, his confusion revealed on his face. Just run away. We have to, she cried shrilly. Her eyes watered up, and 2 tears slid down her hot cheeks. I can't take this. I can't. But, Christina, he started, reaching for her. She'd pulled back out of his reach. We're in danger here, real danger. We have to get as far away as we can. Her entire body was trembling now. But the car, James started. I don't care about the car, she screamed, feeling herself slip out of control. I don't care about the car, and there's nothing you and I can do about Terry, not if some crazy person is after us. Okay. James turned to see if anyone was watching them. Just chill, all right? We'll go. Good, she replied, then uttered a loud sob. Let's just get out of here. 2 more tears rolled down her cheeks. The sky darkened. The gray clouds seemed to lower over them. The wet air carried a chill. Christina took a deep breath. The pungent aroma of diesel fuel filled her nostrils. I hate this place. I really do, she cried. They picked up their bags and made their way to the front. What are we going to do? James asked, his eyes on the empty road that led through town. Hitch, I guess, she replied, keeping close by his side. Okay, you feel a little calmer? Not really, she told him. I won't feel calmer till we're away from here. Not much traffic, he said, as they walked along the road, their sneakers crunching on the gravel. The sky darkened to charcoal gray. The wind gusted, blowing the cypress trees and pines along the road. We'll just keep walking north, she said. Someone will come along eventually. A red pickup truck carrying a load of tree stumps rolled past. Hope it doesn't rain, James said, gazing up at the threatening sky. Hope it blows over. Otherwise, we'll get drenched. I don't care, Christina replied, shifting her bag to the other hand. Another pickup truck, this one empty, rumbled by. As long as we get away. They stopped at the one coffee shop in town and had coffee and jelly donuts at the counter. Christina normally hated the bitter taste of coffee, but this morning it tasted good, and the warmth of it helps to calm her a little. After breakfast, they made their way through the small town, past a tiny post office and the farm equipment store, and a sad-looking general store with a beat-up old dentist chair out in front of it for some reason. A short while later, they were trudging along the side of the highway, turning at every sound to raise their thumbs and wait expectantly for someone to stop. There were mostly trucks on the road this early. The few cars that came by didn't even slow down. The sky became a drab olive color. Christina felt a few cold raindrops on her forehead. Hey, look! James pointed to a car approaching rapidly from the other direction. Is that your Honda? Huh? Christina gaped in shock. The blue Honda roared by. There were 2 women in the front seat. No, Christina told him, lowering her head unhappily. No way. That was a Civic, I think. You know, the smaller model. It was the same color, James said defensively. He was a few feet ahead of her. He stopped and waited for her to catch up. We've walked pretty far, she said, sounding discouraged. There are more cars now, he replied. Someone will stop. Feel those raindrops? She asked. I still don't believe it about Terry, he said, slowing his pace to stay beside her. I know, she said, frowning. If only... she was fine when I left her. She seemed in a perfectly good mood. Huh? Christina cried out in surprise. She tossed her bag down on the sandy ground. What do you mean? He stared back at her, obviously bewildered. Just what I said. When I left her. Christina swallowed hard. It took her a while to speak. You were with her last night? Why didn't you tell me? You saw her? Well, yeah, James said. We went for a walk. I was sure she told you. She didn't tell me anything, Christina said heatedly. Her eyes peered accusingly into James's. She told me she was going out to get some fresh air. She didn't tell me she was meeting you. The rain started to come down harder. spattering noisily against the surface of the highway. She knocked on my door, James explained, ignoring the rain. She said she wanted to apologize. We went for a walk in the woods behind the motel. We talked for a bit. Then we came back. No, you didn't, Christina accused heatedly, her eyes wide with anger and fear. You didn't come back with her? Huh? James stared at her confused. Yes, I did. I walked her back to the motel. You took her to the woods? Christina accused, fear tightening her features, narrowing her eyes as she glared at him. You took Terry to the woods, but you didn't bring her back? She never came back to the room? Whoa, hold on, girl. James dropped his bag and reached for her. Stay away from me, Christina shrieked. Christina! I mean it, stay away from me. She took a step back from him, then another. Her t-shirt was splotched with rain. Her hair was already drenched. She didn't seem to notice. Listen, he said calmly, staring into her eyes. You're getting all crazy. I didn't. Where is she, James? Christina demanded coldly. Where is Terry? What did you do to her last night? Chapter 18. James made no attempt to answer Christina's questions. He stared at her intently, as if trying to decide what his next move should be. Christina eyed him coldly, accusingly, but her hard expression quickly softened to reveal her fear. Her entire body convulsed in a violent shudder as the terror of her situation settled over her. Christina, James started, but she cut him off by raising her hand. No more lies, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The rain picked up, swirled by gusts of cold wind. Christina turned her eyes down the road, which curved into the tall pines to the left. Two crows sat side by side on the high telephone wires across the highway, bobbing and swaying in the wind. James reached out to her, but she backed away, her face revealing anger and fear. Don't touch me, she cried shrilly. I mean it, James. Listen to me, he demanded impatiently, his eyes narrowing as he glared at her. His rain-soaked t-shirt clung to his body. His hair was drenched, and rivulets of rainwater ran down his cheeks. Christina shook her head violently. I can't believe I let this happen to me, she said, not really speaking to him, but talking aloud to herself. I can't believe I'm here all alone, in the middle of nowhere, on this empty highway, with you. He shot her an angry look, angry and desperate at the same time. You didn't feel that way about me yesterday, he said. She tugged at her wet hair. I didn't know. I didn't think. I thought Terry... James started to say something, but stopped. The first gunshot made them both cry out. At the crack of the second gunshot, they both dove to the wet, sandy ground. Chapter 19. Huddled next to Christina, James raised his head, then warily lifted himself to his knees. Who is it? Christina cried, her head buried in her hands. Who is shooting at us? I don't see anyone, James replied, his eyes surveying the thick pine trees. It's hard to see through the rain, but... What? What is it? Christina cried. James shielded his eyes with one hand and stared at the woods to their right as two men stepped out from the trees. Both were wearing khaki trousers and green and brown army camouflage jackets. Both wore bright orange baseball caps. Both were carrying rifles. James rose quickly to his feet, balling his fists as if preparing for a fight. Christina reluctantly stood up beside him, clutching her small suitcase, and raised it in front of her like a shield. The two men, holding their rifles straight up at their sides, approached quickly, their boots squishing noisily over the wet, sandy ground. Did we scare you? One of them called. Hey, we didn't see you, his companion added. Christina and James remained frozen in place as the two men came up to them. Hunters, James muttered, making a face. We were after Quail, the taller one said, grinning sheepishly at Christina. We didn't mean to flush you out. You okay? His companion asked. James nodded. Yeah, it was just a flesh wound, he joked sarcastically. We thought you were shooting at us, Christina said shakily, still holding the suitcase. What are you two doing out here? The first hunter asked, keeping his eyes on her. Yeah, don't you know enough to come in out of the rain, the other one added with a loud snort. Or are you as dumb as Earl and me? Both hunters snorted loudly, grinning at Christina. We're pretty dumb, James replied, hands on his hips, still eyeing them suspiciously. We're just trying to hitch a ride north, Christina said, avoiding their eyes. Why are they staring at me like that? Christina thought. Why are they grinning at me? She felt a tremor of fear. They both had rifles. If they tried anything, she and James would be helpless. Even James with his wild temper wouldn't be much of a match for these two burly men with hunting rifles. Not much traffic on this road so early, the taller one said, turning his eyes to the highway. You might get lucky, the other one offered, still gazing at Christina. Yeah, some driver is bound to feel sorry for you in this rain, the first one agreed. You both look so pitiful. They both snorted with laughter again. The taller one raised his rifle in both hands. Again, Christina felt a tremor of fear, but he quickly lowered the gun onto his shoulder. Sorry again, he said, his grin fading. Yeah, sorry, his companion repeated. Good luck. They both turned and headed back toward the trees, taking long strides over the sandy ground. Christina stood holding her suitcase, staring after them until they disappeared into the woods. They really scared me, she said in a dull, flat voice, not looking at James. They weren't so bad, James said. He raked his hand back through his wet hair and turned to Christina. Now, if you just listen to me for 1 second, she scowled at him. I want to know the truth, James, the truth about Terry. She saw that he was suddenly staring past her. She turned to see a car approaching. James stepped onto the road and raised his thumb. Christina stepped beside him, shivering from the cold rain. The car drew closer. It was a white car, she saw, an Oldsmobile maybe. James waved his hand, signaling the car to stop. It sped past. The tires sent up a mist of rainwater behind it. The driver was alone inside. James lowered his hand, his expression dejected. The car squealed to a stop, sliding over the wet pavement. James stared at it as if not believing his eyes. The car backed up, then stopped about 20 yards ahead of them. Hey, a ride? Christina cried happily. James grabbed up his canvas bag and ran after her toward the white car. The side windows were steamed up. The driver rolled down the front passenger window. Where are you kids headed? North, Christina told him, leaning into the window. He was a young man, she saw, with short brown hair thinning in front. He wore black-rimmed glasses. He was dressed in a yellow and white striped polo shirt and faded jeans. I'll pop the trunk, he said. Throw your stuff in there. The trunk popped open. Christina and James immediately stowed their bags, slammed the trunk shut, then hurried to get in out of the rain. Christina climbed into the front seat. James lowered himself into the back. Bad day to be hitching, the man said, wiping the steam off the windshield with a wadded-up tissue. How do you kids get all the way out here? Just lucky, James said sarcastically. Thanks for stopping, Christina said gratefully, wiping water off her eyebrows with her hand. We thought no one would stop for us. The man smiled and stuck out his hand for her to shake. My name's Art, he said cheerily. He pulled his hand away quickly. Man, you're really soaked. Christina and James introduced themselves. I'm heading to Atlanta, Art told them, shifting into drive and heading the car back onto the road. That should give you time to dry off. Where are you coming from? Florida, Christina replied. It was school break, so we went to Fort Lauderdale. Just the two of you. He accelerated, and the car hummed, the speedometer quickly rising to 50. No, my friend Terry and me, Christina said. My other friend, I mean. Art nodded thoughtfully, his eyes on the road. The windshield wipers clicked in rhythm as the gray world whirred by on both sides. Christina settled back and closed her eyes, trying to relax. I'm going to cut over to the main highway up here, Art said, slowing down as the road curved sharply to the left. Then it's straight ahead to Atlanta. This is real nice of you, James said, rubbing away the steam with his hand so he could see out his window. Hey, I had to stop, Art replied. I couldn't let you drown out there, could I? He smiled at Christina. Besides, I could use the company. The radio's busted, so it was too quiet. The green highway marker loomed on the right. A short while later, Art maneuvered the car onto the 4-lane highway and sped up to 60. The rain continued to pour down. The wipers slid rapidly but didn't seem to accomplish much. The car in front of them sprayed a tidal wave of water onto the windshield. Glancing in his rearview mirror, Art changed lanes. Low visibility day, he muttered. I usually like the rain. Good for the crops and all that. But I hate to drive in it. I know what you mean, James replied awkwardly. You live in Atlanta? Art shook his head. No, down south. How about you? Well, I'm from Key West, James told him, but I'm thinking of moving. Key West is so touristy, Art said, making a face. James agreed. They rode on in silence for a while. James turned his eyes to Christina. She was sitting tensely in the front passenger seat, hands clasped tightly in her lap, staring straight ahead, chewing on her lower lip. He settled back against the warmth of the seat back and closed his eyes. Her angry accusations repeated themselves in his mind. He thought about Terry, about their walk together the night before in the pine woods. Terry, Terry, Terry. The name repeated itself in his thoughts, repeated endlessly until it became a meaningless chant. Christina's alarmed voice broke through his thoughts. That sign? Art, it said we're going south? Art didn't reply. James leaned forward, squinting to see out through the clouded windshield. The sign had whirred past. Now he could only see trees and endless flat fields. Outside, the rain had lightened. The clouds hovered low in the sky, as if closing in on the speeding car. We're going in the wrong direction, Christina said shrilly. We're going south? I know, Art said quietly, eyes straight ahead, his expression blank. But why? What's going on here? Christina demanded. Yeah, what's the deal? James chimed in from the back seat. He put a hand on Art's shoulder. You said you were heading north. I lied, Art said flatly. Huh? James reacted with surprise. Where are we going? What do you mean? Christina asked, fear tightening her throat. A little detour, Art said, still showing no emotion. He jerked his shoulder out from James's grasp and stepped down on the gas. Where are you taking us? James asked. Something I want to show you, Art replied. A strange smile spread slowly on his face. Let us out, Christina screamed. Stop the car. She pulled up the door handle, but the door was locked. We don't want any trouble, James said softly. Art didn't reply. Stop the car, Christina screamed, her features twisted in panic. Ignoring her pleas, Art stared straight ahead into the gray glare. He reached his right hand to the dashboard and fumbled with the dials. Where is the defroster? He asked, speaking to himself. I really hate these rental cars. This isn't your car? James asked. It's a rental? Well, I knew you'd recognize the blue Taurus, Art replied matter-of-factly. So I rented this car after I left you last night.